Madam Speaker, since I have assumed office as Minister of Land Transport, I have had repeated complaints from residents of Saint-Hubert, from one village councillor of that locality, Mr. PJ, also known as Nitin, as well as from my colleagues of Grand Port, Honorable Baburam, Honorable Siben, and the questioner, Honorable Ramdas, on the irregular and unsatisfactory bus services being provided by individual bus operators along Route 87 and Route 11, meaning Saint-Hubert to Cupid and Saint-Hubert to Mayberg, respectively. As the problem was persistent and occurring on a daily basis, I convened a meeting at my ministry on 23rd of January 2025, at which were present my three colleagues MPs, the village councillor, and representative from the NLTA, National Land Transport Authority, to consider the problem. During the course of the meeting, Madam Speaker, some disturbing information was provided on the buses' releases as recorded on stand regulators sheet and subsequently tampered with in the returns from the Bus Owners Cooperative Society of the South, on the basis of which payments are effected to bus operators of Route 87 and 11. The stand regulator sheet for Route 87 and 11 for the last week of December 2024 were obtained together with the returns from the Cooperative Society. A scrutiny of both documents disclosed glaringly the existence of a collusion between the bus operators and the Cooperative Society to defraud disbursement of public funds under the free travel scheme and subsidies on diesel. The comparative exercise carried out revealed that the Cooperative Society wittingly ignored the entries made on the stand regulator sheet where buses were absent from operation during the whole days, as well as where buses had performed a significantly lesser number of trips. In both instances, the Cooperative Society had recorded the buses to be present in service throughout the month and credited these buses with a higher number of trips in spite of these buses being completely absent on some days. In December 2024, the NLTA effected full payment for all operators of routes 87 and 11 as per the returns of the Cooperative Society, in spite of the fact that two buses were absent for a total of 3 days out of 7 days for which a thorough forensic exercise was carried out. Also, full diesel subsidy was paid to all the bus operators, and in light of the outcome of the comparative analysis carried out, the NLTA had disbursed 9,405 rupees in excess on free travel and 3,885 rupees in excess of diesel subsidies. These amounts, Madam Speaker, appear insignificant at first look, but I would like to stress on the fact that the scrutiny of records focused on only 2 problematic buses over a period of 7 days, out of which 3 days the buses were absent, and for which claims were fraudulently claimed and fully paid for. But then there is a total of over 800 individual bus operators grouped within cooperative societies which are operating under the same payment system for the last 20 years, that is, since the introduction of the free travel scheme and other financial support, diesel subsidy. When this finding from the forensic exercise is brought on the national level for 800 individual bus operators on a scheme that costs taxpayers 2.5 billion rupees yearly, therefore, 10th of billion of rupees over 20 years, one can easily deduce that the amount defrauded could be in billions over the last 20 years. The more so the number of complaints my ministry has receives day in, day out. Madam Speaker, the government and the travelling public are not deriving the full benefits from this scheme, and hence I would like to thank my colleagues MPs from constituency number 11, as well as the village councillor, Mr. Nitin, for their precious help in bringing to light the malpractice outlined above. I would like to encourage my other colleague MPs to report cases which they consider that public funds are being defrauded. The NLTA has been instructed to record a statement from the village councillor on the inaccuracies disclosed. This statement has been referred to the police for inquiry and eventual prosecution. I'm tabling a copy of the statement with the permission of Mr. Nitin. As for routes 87 and 11, my ministry intends to consider the invitation of applications from the public to replace the unscrupulous operators, and the provisions under Section 77D of the Road Traffic Act will be used to expedite their replacement. Madam Speaker, may I now seek your indulgence for a few more minutes to tell the House and the stakeholders the remedial measures, which is part of the substantive question, that my ministry is taking in respect of the systemic problems regarding poor level of bus transport service occurring around the island, in order to have a better control over the operation of buses and for enhancing accountability on the disbursement of public funds to bus operators while ensuring an improved level of service for the travelling public. Number one, a fleet management system will be introduced requiring all buses mandatorily to provide with a GPS, to be fitted with a GPS system linked to a control room which will be situated under NLTA. This system will provide real-time information on the number of buses in operation, as well as the number of trips performed. This system is expected to come into operation during the course of this year itself, if all goes as scheduled. Number two, the Memorandum of Understanding relating to the payment of free travel compensation signed between the NLTA and the bus operators will be reviewed, subject to government approval, from a daily-based payment to a trip-based one. Number three, similarly, the fleet management system will enable a more accurate computation of mileage incurred by each bus on a daily or monthly basis for disbursement of fuel subsidies, diesel subsidies, in fact. Number four, the road service license of operators not providing services as per the conditions of their licenses will be revoked, as mentioned earlier, Section 77D of the Road Traffic Act will be used to have new players. Number five, my ministry will arrange for strengthening the inspectorate staff of the NLTA, which is currently devoid of such officers, and to have management support officers pending a substantive recruitment exercise of inspectors. This arrangement will allow for higher NLTA presence along bus routes and at bus stations. Number six, my ministry is also holding consultations with bus operators to acquire new buses and avail of the incentive provided under the bus modernization program. And lastly, number seven, we will assist as far as possible to expedite the recruitment of foreign workers in the bus industry to meet labour shortage. Madam Speaker, to end, the situation in the public transport has declined and is today subject to a significant number of complaints. The satisfaction level in all segments of the population is quite low. I am of the view that this is the result of yet another failure of our institutions and a complete absence of bold policies during the past years, past 10 years especially, to make the transport sector inclusive and attractive. Therefore, it is worth mentioning that with the collaboration of my colleague MPs and with the village councillor, it has taken my ministry only one meeting to detect and disclose malpractices impacting negatively on disbursement of funds, for which institutions ought to have noticed and addressed but did not do so. I am therefore taking bold measures to ensure that the roles of and responsibilities of the NLTA are reinforced. Lastly, I wish to reassure the House that my ministry will ensure that notable improvements are brought in the bus services throughout the island, and that all sums of money spent on transport for the mobility of the population are effected with high responsibility and accountability. It is indeed a daunting challenge, Madam Speaker, but I'm fully prepared to take it head on. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Yes. The Honourable Fourth Member for Rodrigues.
Madam Speaker, B23.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Madam Speaker, I'm informed that the Cattle Productivity Incentive Scheme was launched in Mauritius in the year 2013. with the objective of providing a grant to breeders in order to assist them in taking better care of the animals during the critical life period of the calf from day 1 to 3 months. The Cattle Productivity Incentive Scheme is managed by the Small Farmers Welfare Fund and provides for a cash grant of 15,000 rupees as an incentive to small registered breeders for each calf that has reached the age of 3 months, up to a maximum of 40 calves per year. Now, the overall objective is to increase cattle productivity and enhance food security. Madam Speaker, subsequent in financial year 2023-2024, provision was made for the scheme to be extended to Rodrigues as well, to enable the registered breeders in Rodrigues to also benefit from the scheme. Now, with regard to Part A of the question, I'm informed by the Small Farmers Welfare Fund that an amount of 1 million rupees was budgeted in the financial year 2023-2024 for Rodrigues, and 76 applications were received from breeders in respect of 138 calves for a total amount of 2,070,000 rupees. Out of the total of 70 applications, payment of 150,000 rupees for 10 calves were made to 3 applicants in the financial year 2023-2024, while payment of an amount of 1,920,000 will be effected to 73 applicants in the financial year. 1 million rupees has been budgeted by Rodrigues Regional Assembly in this financial year, and the remaining amount, 920,000, will be paid by the Small Farmers Welfare Fund. Now, B, as regards B of the question, I wish to highlight that in accordance with the decision of the Ministry of Finance, the scheme in respect of Rodrigues for the financial year 2024-2025 is being implemented by Rodrigues Regional Assembly. I am also informed that the scheme is operated on a demand basis, and additional funds can be reallocated by Rodrigues Regional Assembly from other schemes to meet the increasing demands. According to the Rodrigues Regional Assembly, as of now, no application under the scheme has been received, and there has been no disbursement of funds in the financial year.
Oh, all right. Thank you. Yes, Honourable First Member for Portrush Maritime and Portrush East.
B24.
Madam Speaker, I thank the Honourable Member for his question, and my answer is as follows. I'm informed by the New Social Living Development Limited, NSLD, that the project at Arsenal consists in the construction of a total of 574 housing units on 2 sites. That is 284 units on one side, opposite Arsenal Government School, and 290 units on another site, opposite La Pépinière d'Arsenal. With regards to Part A, I am informed by the NSLD that the total cost of the project is approximately 1.92 billion rupees. According to information provided by the Ministry of Finance, the contractor has benefited from exemption of VAT, as other contractors have also done under this particular social housing project. In this particular case, it was of 54 million on the project at Arsenal. As regards Part B, I'm again informed by the NSLD that works on both sites are currently ongoing, and the building works of the 574 housing units only are expected to be completed by September 2025. Madam Speaker, in regards to Part C, the architectural firm for the project at Arsenal is NK Architect Limited. Insofar as Part D is concerned, I'm informed that the building and land use permit in respect of both sites was first obtained on the 4th of August 2023. And my understanding is that a BLUP is only issued by a local authority after all required clearances have been obtained. I would like to add, however, that there was an amendment, an application for an amended BLUP on both sides, and I am informed that they date to the 11th of October 2024.
Yes, all right. The honourable second member for Rodrigues, Mr. François. We're glad that you made it.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. B24.
Thank you very much, honourable member. Madam Speaker, the Off-lagoon fishing scheme, purchase of Canot, was introduced with the aim of providing financial support to registered artisanal fishers to enable them to purchase better equipped fishing boats of 7 to 12 meters, commonly known as Canot, for fishing in the outer reef in order to enhance the livelihood of the artisanal fishers, while altogether increasing local fish production. The scheme provides for the following. 1, a grant representing 50% of the cost of the boat and other related costs, including navigation and fishing accessories, up to a maximum of 300,000 rupees. B, a loan from DBM representing 90% of the remaining cost of the project at an interest rate of 3% per annum and a repayment period of 7 years, including 1-year moratorium. And C, the beneficiary meeting the 10% of the remaining costs from his own fund. In this context, my ministry has signed a memorandum of understanding with the Development Bank of Mauritius Limited for implementation of the scheme. Madam Speaker, I'm informed that the scheme was available for Mauritian fishers, and it is only recently, that is, as from July 2023, that the scheme was extended to fishers on Rodrigues. As regards part 1 of the question, my ministry received from the Commission for Agriculture, Fisheries, Food Production, Forestry, Plant and Animal Quarantine of the Rodrigues Regional Assembly 22 applications from fishers in Rodrigues. These applications were subsequently submitted to the DBM on the 31st August 2023 for financial assessment at its end. Regarding part 2 of the question, I'm informed by the Chief Executive of the DBM that on the 3rd October 2023, 19 out of the 22 applications were approved. Madam Speaker, the House may wish to note that in January 2024, a total grant of 4,219,740 rupees was disbursed in favour of the 19 eligible fishers from Rodrigues. As regards breakdown of the total grant amount disbursed in respect of each of the 19 beneficiaries, I am tabling the information.
Yes.
Just one supplementary, Madam Speaker. Is the Honourable Minister aware that out of the 19 applications received or approved, only 3 or 4 cannot have been purchased? And some of the fishers, probably out of the 4 million you mentioned, have received part payment for construction of the cannot for a construction period of only 3 months, which have already lapsed. And why lapsed? Because local contractors, marine contractors, could not respond positively with all the problems of shortages of raw materials and increasing cost materials. So will the Honourable Minister request a review or an extension of this construction period with DBM and the local authorities thereat in the interest of our fishers?
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Since you're acting in the interest of the fishermen, and we all agree, would have no choice but to impress upon DBM to do the needful.
Thank you. Yes. The Honourable Second Member for Belrose and Cameroon.
B26, please. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, I am informed by the Traffic Management and Road Safety Unit of my ministry that the traffic lights opposite the Catrobon Market are currently operational for vehicular traffic, while for pedestrians, these traffic lights are not presently operational. In fact, the cables connecting the Pelican Heads pedestrian lights along Victoria Avenue, B72 Road, in reference, to the controller box have been found to be faulty. Due to faulty cables, erratic timing and complete power outage of the whole set of traffic light signals have been observed. As such, only the Pelican Heads along Victoria Avenue, meaning B72, have been disconnected. To ensure the operational characteristics of the traffic lights on the other legs for vehicular traffic. Madam Speaker, I'm also informed that the underground sleeve harboring the cables are completely jammed. As a result, civil works, meaning excavation of the road and putting new trunks and cable, will have to be undertaken to change the sleeve and the cables. This intervention does not fall under the contract for maintenance of traffic lights. At this moment in time, no contract for civil works can be awarded under the framework agreement because same have expired and new tenders will have to be launched. This might take some time. However, the repairs of these traffic signals will be given priority consideration in view of their strategic location. Meanwhile, the TRMSU has written to the Commissioner of Police to ensure safe pedestrian crossing at the location.
Thank you, Minister. Yes.
Supplementary.
Yeah. One.
Je vous remercie.
One at a time.
Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente. Would the Minister inform the House when was the last maintenance or inspection conducted on these traffic lights and what were the findings?
Like I said, the problem is underground, Madam Speaker, because the cables are faulty. That is why there is erratic light signal on the Pelican Heads. It is not due to bad maintenance, it's because the cable. I asked the Traffic Management and Road Safety Unit, because the trunks are already there, why don't you slot in new cables? But the problem is over the years, 20 years or so, it has been jammed with mud and all these things, and it has not been possible. So it's not a question of maintenance, it's a question of faulty cables.
Yes.
Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente. In the estimate of 24-25, okay, a sum of 25 millions have been allocated for the maintenance of the traffic lights. Can the Minister provide a detailed breakdown of how this amount has been spent as far? Thank you.
If I
It's a
may,
very tall order.
it is indeed. It is indeed. And, you know, I am minister for 2 months. Previously, the Honorable Ganu was there. I do not know how he spent that money, but we'll have to,
You'll find out.
I'll find out and get back to the Honorable member.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Honorable Minister. Madame la Présidente, le dysfonctionnement de ces feux de signalisation représente un grave danger, d'accord, dans notre circonscription, et surtout que c'est vis-à-vis du marché de Quatre-Bornes. En attendant leur réparation, le ministre pourrait-il indiquer quelles mesures urgentes peuvent être prises pour assurer la sécurité des piétons? Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente.
Madam Speaker, I have replied to this. I've said that the TRMSU has written to the Commissioner of Police to ensure safe pedestrian crossing at that location. So if there is
I
none,
cannot hear the answer, please.
if there is none, I will have to speak to the Commissioner of Police, if that is allowed, of course, to ensure that needful is being done there. Because we have written formally, and I'm quite surprised that no police officers are there.
Will that do? Yes. All right. As long as everything is secure. Honourable third member for Vieux-Grand-Pont and Roosevelt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. PQB 27, please.
Madam Speaker, complaints have been received regarding the long waiting time faced by the inhabitants of the southern regions before undergoing coronary angiography and angioplasty. This is due to the fact that Jawaharlal Nehru Hospital had not been equipped with an angiography machine. Accordingly, patients requiring routine and emergency coronary angiography and angioplasty had to be referred to the Trust Fund for Specialized Medical Care for treatment. Madam Speaker, as at 31st December 2024, there were 121 patients on the waiting list at Jawaharlal Nehru Hospital. Since July 2023, an angiography machine has been transferred from Cardiac Center, Trust Fund for Specialized Medical Care to Jawaharlal Nehru Hospital, but the equipment has been non-functional. However, I have to highlight that electrical works, including air conditioning, have been contracted out and will be completed by 16th February 2025. Additionally, the CAT lab comprising 5 cardiologists, trained nursing staff, and 18 ICU beds has also been set up thereat. Madam Speaker, the pre-installation works for angiography machine is almost completed at Jawaharlal Nehru Hospital, and the machine will be operational around mid-February 2025, thus alleviating the plight of the inhabitants of the region. Nonetheless, being a second-hand machine, the angiography equipment has to be tested to assess its functionality. In the same vein, my ministry is exploring the possibility of acquiring a new angiography equipment in the future.
Thank you. Yes. PQ B28 will be replied by the Honourable Minister of Social Integration. So, Honourable First Member for Rodrigues, Ms. Colette.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question B28, please.
Madam Speaker, I wish to inform the House that my ministry provides financial assistance under the National Solidarity Fund to bereaved families residing in Mauritius in respect to death cases, including victims of fatal road accidents. With regard to Rodrigues, I'm informed by the Rodrigues Regional Assembly that they do not have any similar mechanism in place for providing financial assistance to families of victims of fatal road accidents thereat, nor have they made any application so far to my ministry to that effect. In view of ensuring fairness to all citizens of the Republic residing in Rodrigues, my ministry is proposing to assist the Rodrigues Regional Assembly to set up a similar mechanism so as to provide financial support to families of victims of fatal road accidents in Rodrigues for timely relief. I am tabling into this House a list of assistance under the National Solidarity Fund, the National Pension Act, and Social Aid Act to bereaved families in respect of death cases, including victims of fatal road accidents in Mauritius. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Yes. The Honourable Second Member for Rodrigues.
Yes, thank you. B29.
Madam Speaker, I am informed that the Social Register of Mauritius, SRM, was introduced in 2008 as a centralized database to register individuals requesting financial support. Eligibility for assistance is based on 2 criteria. First, income, and second, a proxy means test, PMT, which is a formula used to determine eligibility of an individual or a household to benefit from empowerment support. The proxy means test, PMT formula, aims at addressing the living standard of each household and is based on demographic and socio-economic characteristics, such as age, gender, number of children, as well as whether the applicant is owner of his or her dwelling and the housing conditions thereof. The existing criteria in use for the PMT dates back to 2016. In view of the changing socio-economic conditions, the PMT criteria, which still makes use of data from Household Budget Survey 2012, need to be reviewed to take on board new criteria to be worked out. In addition, after 9 years, observations have been made of elements of subjectivity when applying some of the criteria of the PMT. The previous government has, in June 2023, initiated action to review the PMT. Maurice Strategy, MS, which currently falls under the purview of the Ministry of Financial Services and Economic Planning, was solicited to assist with the review and is providing the services of a local and an international consultant for the review thereof, with the financial support of Agence Française de Développement AFD and Expertise France. However, the review of the PMT is also largely dependent on the findings of the latest Household Budget Survey 2023, which is expected to be finalized by February 2025, according to Statistics Mauritius. Furthermore, the board of the National Empowerment Foundation, NEF, is presently being reconstituted after an expression of interest for which 269 applications were received by the 27th January 2025. Once the NEF board reconstituted and the NEF and the ministry, my ministry will decide on the follow-up mission by the consulted plan in March 2025 to finalize the PMT review or any other alternative process necessary to review the outdated PMT. Thank you, Madam President.
Minister. Yes. Other member for Rodrigues, Ms. Colette, first member for Rodrigues.
B30.
Madam Speaker, I wish to thank the Honourable Member, First Member Rodrigues, for a question which is as vast and broad as education can be. Her concern regarding the proposed reforms and issues pertaining to curriculum and digital transformation and equity is legitimate. I wish to assure the Honourable Member that this government is fully committed to revamping and reconstructing our education system on the basis of equity. As mentioned in the government program 2025-2029, this government will ensure that the reforms of our education system cover the widest possible number of issues, hampering the development of our students while addressing emerging challenges in a constantly evolving sector. Today, this government has the dual task of quickly cleaning the massive pedagogical mess left by the previous regime and to come forward with a set of innovative measures to address the myriad emerging challenges facing the education sector. After what we have experienced over the past 10 years under the previous regime, where our children were martyred by an oppressive pedagogy that mercilessly excluded thousands of students of the Republic, now is the time to redress the situation. This government believes that each child of the Republic, regardless of their background or ability, has the right to receive an equitable and quality education. Equity in education involves transformation of all physical and learning aspects of the school, such as curriculum, pedagogy, learning strategies, assessment, and teacher training, and creates an education system that responds to the needs of all children in a healthy and conducive learning environment, adapted to their intellectual, social, physical, artistic, cultural, and economic needs. The previous government didn't realize that our schools have to cater for all the children of the Republic. We have to cater for the aspirations of the high flyers, nurture their quest for excellence, and at the same time, we should not neglect the average and slow learners. Different students learn at different ways and different paces. We cannot have a one-size-fits-all pathway for all our children. This government cares for all the children of the Republic. The new educational policy orientations of my ministry have been very aptly articulated in the government program 2025-2029. Unlike the previous government, which imposed policies and which obstinately refused to entertain meaningful dialogues with partners of the educational sector, we believe in listening to stakeholders. Since holding office, this is what I have been relentlessly doing. A blueprint will be prepared after the Assises de l'Éducation, which will be held in April 2025. Madam Speaker, I wish to inform the honourable member that my ministry sent a delegation to Rodrigues during mid-January for a sensitization campaign on the implementation of the new foundational program, which has replaced the obnoxious extended program, which unfortunately massacred the future of thousands of our students who left the system neither with a PESAC nor with an NC certificate. Another team from my ministry is proceeding to Rodrigues soon for the implementation of the Google Classroom digitization project. We believe that digital transformation encourages a shift from teacher-centered instruction to student-driven learning. Madam Speaker, curriculum development, digital transformation, and equity are interdependent factors that shape the future of quality education. While digital technologies offer immense potential to enhance learning experiences, they also present challenges related to accessibility and fairness. A forward-thinking curriculum must integrate digital tools, promote competency and value-based learning, and integrate and ensure that every child, regardless of their background, can benefit from technological advancements. Only by addressing these challenges can our education system fully harness the power of curriculum and digital transformation while ensuring quality education and equity in education. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will the Honourable Minister indicate whether there will be consideration for some civic education included in the curriculum for our children at all levels, including secondary level in Rodrigues?
Thank you for that supplementary question. Without civic education fully embedded in the new curriculum that we are envisaging, we cannot contemplate the education of the future. And today, more than ever, when we see what is happening in this society, when we are reconstructing a new Mauritius, definitely at the basis of that reconstruction phase, we will need civic education. Sometimes I will say, tongue-in-cheek, not only for students, but for all Mauritians, we need that. Thank you, Madam.
Yes. All right. So interesting, we were sleeping almost. I didn't mean that, huh? I meant we were very interested. The Honourable Third Member for Pamplemousses and Triolet.
Madam Speaker, question B31.
With your permission, Madam Speaker, I shall answer parliamentary questions B31 and B44 together. They both relate to the same subject matter. Madam Speaker, I thank both honourable members for their respective questions. I must say that since I was appointed Minister of Social Integration, Social Security and National Solidarity, I am in the presence of constant complaints and outcries in relation to the entitlements of our citizens to rights and benefits related to disabilities. Complaints are never-ending and on a daily basis, reported either to the Ministry, to me, or to the Junior Minister, to my colleague ministers, and to members of this Assembly. Many citizens are of the view that their application are unjustly rejected, disallowed, or abruptly stopped. Many citizens cannot understand why they are constantly being called for new medical assessments on a yearly basis when they view their disabilities as being part of permanent nature, or when they are completely bedridden. Madam Speaker, the malfunctioning disability benefit system is exposed by the fact that the average time spent by a medical doctor from the medical board to assess the degree of incapacity of a person and hence to determine his or her eligibility for basic invalid pension or disability allowance is less than 5 minutes per applicant. Consequently, and in reply to Part C of question B31 and to the first part of PQ B54, my ministry will formulate new policies and bring structural changes to the assessment processes and procedures used to determine pensions and allowances entitlements of our citizens with disabilities. Same has already been mentioned in the presidential address, and the Attorney General is being notified of this legislative reform agenda. Disability-related NGOs, specialists, and activists are being and will be further consulted in this context. In regard to Part A of PQ B31, I wish to inform the House that presently persons with disabilities are entitled to an invalid basic pension or a disability allowance after an assessment by a medical board. Additionally, as from July 2024, children suffering from a disability of less than 15 years who are in receipt of an invalid basic pension or a disability allowance are eligible for an additional monthly allowance of 3,000 rupees. The criteria for someone to benefit from an invalid basic pension is in accordance with Section 8 of the National Pensions Act 1976, is that the person be under the age of 60 years and has disability of 60% or more, which is likely to last for a period of at least 12 months. With regard to eligibility to disability allowance, a person in accordance with Section 38 of the Social Contribution Act and Social Benefits Act 2021 be entitled to same if, firstly, he has a disability of not less than 40% and not exceeding 59% due to an injury or medical condition specified in the 6th schedule of the Act. B, he is under the age of 60 years, and C, he is not in receipt of a basic pension under the National Pensions Act. Madam Speaker, with regard to Part A of PQ B31, I am informed that presently a medical assessment is carried out by medical practitioners of my ministry to determine the eligibility of the invalid's basic pension and disability allowance. Assessment are carried out either by a medical board, which comprises of 2 medical practitioners, or by 1 medical practitioner at the claimant's residence for those who are bedridden and who cannot attend medical board. A medical guideline dated 2016 is also used by medical practitioners who sit on medical boards for assessment of claimants for the benefits. These guidelines have been prepared with the help of specialists in various fields from the Ministry of Health and Wellness with a view to standardizing the assessment made by doctors while evaluating eligibility of claimants. The guidelines also stipulate the duration of the award of the benefits. With regard to the rest of Part A of PQ B31, I am further informed that medical doctors employed in public hospital only examine patients for their respective ailments for which they present themselves at hospitals. This examination is not conducted to determine eligibility to any kind of benefit. However, medical certificates which are issued by medical doctors employed in the public hospital and private institutions are presented by claimants on medical boards. The whole assessment process is presently under scrutiny and will be subject to review in the context of the upcoming reform. Madam Speaker, at present, a person whose case has been disallowed by a medical board or domiciliary board has the right to make an appeal to the medical tribunal. The medical tribunal is composed of 2 specialists in relevant field and is chaired by a representative of the Attorney General's office. The above steps too will also be subject to review in the context of the coming reform. Madam Speaker, with regard to Part B, 1, 2, and 2 of PQB 31, I am informed that since July 2015 to January 2025, my ministry has received 88,628 applications for the invalids' basic pensions, out of which 44,301 cases have been allowed and 41,385 cases have been disallowed by medical boards. I am further informing the House that as at February 2025, there are 26,057 beneficiaries of invalid basic pensions and 630 beneficiaries of disability allowance. For the information of the House, I am tabling a document compiling the data of the cases processed for the last 10 years. Madam Speaker, this House can rest assured that this government will ensure that all our citizens who have a disability will be treated with dignity, respect, and a fair and caring manner. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Yes.
Madame la Présidente, tout d'abord, je voudrais remercier le ministre, l'honorable ministre, pour les réponses qu'il nous a fournies. De sa réponse, je tiens que presque 50% des applications pour l'allocation d'un invalide ont été rejetées par un board composé de 1 ou 2 médecins qui ne passent que 5 minutes pour évaluer ces cas. Donc, les personnes qui ont besoin de cette allocation d'invalidité sont souvent dans un grand besoin. Quelles mesures urgentes peut le ministre proposer dans ces cas en attendant la réforme qui vient?
Monsieur le ministre. Question très pertinente.
Très pertinente. First, this will be the main component of the coming reform. And secondly, what we are trying to do now is reorganizing the team so that we can process in a more speedily manner the applications. Okay? We had a legal problem for the constitution of the board. There was a mistake in the law, which was clarified by the State Law Office, which took time. I received the opinion of the State Law Office 2 weeks ago of the legality of the medical board. Now that this has been clarified, maybe we'll also review the composition of the medical board who are performing these tests and seeks what are the rational criteria when assessing application for invalidity pension or disability pension, allowance. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Yes. So the next question would now be Honourable Third Member for Portus North and Montaignon. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. PQB 32.
Madam Speaker, I'm informed by the Central Water Authority that the road reinstatement works in this region were delayed due to a shortage of bitumen on the local market between June to September 2024. Further, I'm further informed that the Central Water Authority launched another bid exercise in the north in October 2024. The 2 bids received were evaluated. However, approval was not obtained for the award of the contract due to the last general election. I can assure the honourable member that this project would be looked into as a matter of priority.
Yes, one moment. The Honourable Second Member for Rivière-des-Anguilles. Somebody is asking...
Madam Speaker, B33.
Madame la Présidente, le projet de barrage de la rivière des Anguilles était à l'ordre du jour du gouvernement précédent pendant tout son mandat de 5 ans. Le projet a été annoncé lors de discours budgétaires successifs et des fonds ont été alloués à sa mise en œuvre pendant 5 ans ou même 7 ans. En 2020, Madame la Présidente, l'ancien gouvernement avait annoncé que le barrage de la rivière des Anguilles serait construit pour un coût estimé à environ 7,5 millions de roupies. Je parle en 2020, 5 ans de cela. Milliards. Oui, milliards, pardon. Dans le discours sur le budget de 2021-22, l'octroi des fonds pour la construction du barrage et la station de traitement des eaux a été annoncé. Des fonds à la hauteur de 100 millions de roupies ont été de nouveau annoncés dans le discours de 2022-2023 pour démarrer la construction du barrage de la rivière des Anguilles. Dans le cadre du dernier budget 2023-2024, il a été indiqué que la conception détaillée et la préparation du projet du barrage de la rivière des Anguilles avaient été finalisées. Malheureusement, il ne s'est presque rien passé. This year, Madam Speaker, an amount of 930 millions has been provided in the estimate of 2024-2025 du dernier gouvernement pour la construction de ce rivière des Anguilles project. Merci.
Yes.
Thank you. So can the Honourable Minister inform the House whether we are coming with a project ou ça va rester comme l'éternel Poulidor?
25 ans.
Merci.
Madam Speaker, si vous me le permettez, avec votre permission, I am informed that the pre-qualification exercise for the construction of Rivière des Anguilles was launched on February 2024, l'année dernière, under the aegis of the Central Procurement Board. At the closing date, en avril 2024, 9 applicants have submitted their proposal, and following an evaluation exercise conducted by the Central Procurement Board, the Ministry was informed that 8 firms have been shortlisted. It is to be noted, Honourable Member, Madame la Présidente, that in accordance with the loan agreement signed with the funding agencies, there prior no objection of the evaluation exercise and shortlisted bidders is required before proceeding with the notification process in accordance with the Public Procurement Act. I am further informed that once the funding agencies have conveyed their no objection to the shortlist of bidders established by the Central Procurement Board, the bidding exercise for the appointment of work contractor would be launched by the Central Procurement Board. It is expected, Honourable Member, Madame la Présidente, that the bidding exercise for the appointment of a contractor and the subsequent no objection of funding agencies of the selection of contractor may take around 6 months. The duration of the for the construction of them is around 40 months, 2029-2030. Merci.
May I just find out if we are going in a wrong direction? We were on B32, right? We were on B33. You finished B32. It was also... Huh? 33, c'est bon. Allez? Okay?
Sorry, I'm still fishing for information. I want to hear from Honourable Minister when we are starting with the project.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. It is expected to start the work end of this year, December 2025.
Okay. Now we got Honourable Second Member for Rodrigues. Yes, Mr.
Yes, beef, 3-4.
Madam Speaker, I am informed that there is a shortage of animal feed since the beginning of January 2025. And according to the information provided so far, producers in Mauritius did not provide the normal amount of animal feed to supply to Rodrigues in December 2024. There was also an increase in demand in the consumption of animal feed from 468 containers of 20 feet in 2023 to 542 containers in 2024. Therefore, an increase of 74 containers was noted. Madam Speaker, regarding Part B of the question, I have been informed that the Rodrigues Regional Assembly has already initiated discussion with stakeholders concerned, including the Mauritius Port Authority, Mauritius Shipping Company Limited, and Velogic Limited and Associated Container Services Limited, to devise and implement short-term measures to address the challenges which have been identified so far. I further note that the Rodrigues Regional Assembly has reported that it will continue to encourage and facilitate the business community in Rodrigues to enhance their warehousing and storage capacity.
Yes. I thank the Honourable Minister for his answer, Madam Speaker. I'm following myself also with the importers and breeders in Rodrigues. With regards to the number of containers of livestock feed and meadows feed on each Perros-Banos voyage to Rodrigues, lately I have some statistics. Well, like on the 3rd December, 12 containers, 4th of January, 10 containers, 15th January, 23 containers, 25th of January, 25 containers. Will the Honourable Minister do ensure and request concerned authorities not to reduce the normal containers quota for animal feed? As from information gathered from breeders, there were many losses during the period of in December and January. Losses, animal losses.
I believe that the Honourable Member should have asked the question to my colleague, Minister of Shipping, but I will talk to him.
Yes, all right. That's fair enough.
Already talked. Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay.
I spoke to him on Friday.
Belrose. Belrose, Catherine, yes.
Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente. B35.
Madam Speaker, I'm informed that on 29 November 2023, works orders amounting to a total sum of 66 million, inclusive of VAT, were issued under the framework agreement of the Road Development Authority to Gamma Construction Limited to undertake the drain works over a stretch of some 800 meters along Old Moka Road up to Rivière Sèche, located near the MCB building with a view to mitigating flooding at Saint-Jean. The region of Saint-Jean, being a densely populated area with an extensive network of buried services, appropriate measures had to be undertaken to prevent any disruption in the existing services and to avoid inconvenience to the inhabitants thereat. Consequently, trial pit works had to be carried out to identify buried services. The works, which started at 30 November 2023, were expected to be completed by 30 May 2024. However, the project has not yet been completed for various reasons. This project has been declared as emergency, whereby the risk to life and damage to property was significant, and yet it has been delayed for almost 1 year. Since my assumption of office as Minister, I've expressed my dissatisfaction with the progress made up to now. I have chaired several meetings with different stakeholders to remove all bottlenecks being encountered and to expedite the completion of the project. I have been informed that the delay in project was the result of major relocation and realignment works pertaining to the extensive underground services such as the CWA water lines, MTEL lines, Mauritius Telecom lines, and sewer lines. I also wish to highlight that due to major relocation, realignment works, and the increase in volume of excavation, the cost of the project now stands at some 180 million, for which financial clearance has already been secured. Madam Speaker, I am further informed that the relocation of all underground services has now been completed, except for the relocation of the sewer lines, which is ongoing and expected to be completed by 22nd February 2025. As at date, 70% of the works have been completed. The drain is expected to be functional by 26 February 2025, and the whole project is expected to be completed by 15 March 2025. Madam Speaker, let me reassure the House that in the event of heavy rainfall in the region of Saint-Jean prior to the completion of the project, both the consultant and the contractor have been requested to ensure that all measures are taken to avoid flooding and associated damages. The contractor has also been requested to mobilize mobile pumps of adequate capacity in standby mode, along with water carrier lorries, to pump out water at the cemetery's entrance if required. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente. Je remercie également le ministre pour sa réponse. Madame la Présidente, des tombes provenant du cimetière Saint-Jean ont envahi la cour des habitants. Un projet supposément en mode fast-track accuse un retard indécent. Nous parlons de 250 tombes qui endommagées, Madame la Présidente. C'est grave. Et tout cela sous l'Ancien Régime. Le ministre peut-il indiquer à la Chambre si son ministère, vu l'urgence, la grande urgence, les habitants de Saint-Jean vivent dans la peur à chaque grosse pluie. Est-ce que le ministre envisage d'organiser un site visit dans les plus brefs délais avec les différents départements concernés, s'il vous plaît, parce que je peux vous dire, les habitants vivent dans une grande peur. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Madam Speaker, the honourable member is right in saying that this project was supposed to be an emergency project. It took 1 year because there was no follow-up action, because we had many stakeholders involved, the CWA, the telecom, the MTEL, and I've gone through the file. I've not seen any meeting chaired by the former minister, at least to expedite matters so that the project can go fast. We can imagine that now the project has, from 66 million, it has gone up to 180 million. It has taken nearly 1 year, putting the lives of people in danger there. So now, as soon as I assume office, I chaired meeting so that we expedite matters, and as I've said to the honourable member, that we are expecting the completion of the project by 15th of March. And the drain will be functional 26th February. The whole project will be functional 15th of March. But I have no objection for having a site visit. Okay. We can fix a common date so that we can go on site and explain to the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. The Honourable Second Member for Belrose again.
B36.
Madam Speaker, I am informed by the Traffic Management and Road Safety Unit of my ministry that it has already effected a road safety inspection around Condos Government School, and the following measures have been recommended. Number one, the setting up of a pedestrian crossing to ensure safe crossing of school children, fixing of warning signs to indicate presence of school, fixing of 40 km/h speed limit signs, and painting of slow road markings on approaches to the school gate, and fixing of handrails over a length of about 50 meters to properly segregate pedestrian traffic from vehicular traffic along Tolérance Avenue, fronting Condos Government School. Number two, the fixing of warning signs to indicate presence of school along Robert Edouard Hart Avenue. And number three, the reinstatement of all traffic signs associated with existing humps, fixing of warning signs to indicate presence of school, and fixing of 40 km speed limits along Citroën Avenue. Madam Speaker, the TRMSU is currently working on the cost estimates in respect of the recommended measures that I've listed above. At this moment in time, like I said earlier, no contract for civil works can, however, be awarded under the framework agreement because the same has expired and new tenders will have to be launched. This might take some time. Funds are also being identified in the meantime because, like I said earlier again, all funds have been used up before my arrival at the ministry, I am told. Once funds secured, procurement exercise and onward award of contract for implementing the measures that I've listed will take place. Thank you.
Yes, one.
Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente. Une seule supplémentaire. Est-ce que le ministre pourrait nous donner une indication par rapport à une date à laquelle nous parlons de la sécurité des enfants, qui à chaque sortie de classe, ils courent, ils sont... Non, on s'attend au pire. Est-ce qu'on peut avoir une indication sur un time frame, allons dire? Merci.
Yes. Like I said, the framework agreement is a tender that covers the whole island of Mauritius for works to be implemented by TRMSU, and it is awarded by the Central Procurement Board. So there is a procedure to be followed, but also funds are being identified. I can safely say within the next 3 to 4 months, we should be able to see daylight on this.
La réponse était claire pourtant. Hein? Allez-y.
En fait, monsieur, je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente. On parle de la vie des enfants en bas âge, des mineurs. Et je voudrais savoir, Monsieur le ministre, en attendant, je comprends, il y a des procédures, oui, tout à fait, je respecte les procédures, ok. En attendant, ces enfants traversent la rue, mais d'une façon vraiment brutale, parce qu'ils ne comprennent pas, ils ne savent pas, il n'y a pas de policiers, il n'y a pas de crossiers, il n'y a pas de bain, il n'y a rien. Alors, on voudrait savoir, est-ce qu'en attendant, vous auriez pu mettre des mesures en place pour pouvoir justement sécuriser ces enfants? Merci.
Il faut mettre les lollipops, man, you know? Lollipops. Se mettre debout au milieu de la rue, tout ça.
I can certainly look into it to ensure that road safety measures are being implemented there. I will do it.
Okay, honourable third member, au Bassin.
Seven.
Madam Speaker, I presume that my honourable colleague is referring to the construction project of 750 housing units being undertaken by the new Social Living Development NSLD at Coronary. I am informed by the NSLD that 70% of the on-site construction works, housing units and on-site infrastructure have been completed. These works are expected to be completed by end of June 2025. As regards part A of the question, the main criteria to benefit from social housing units are as follows. Number one, the monthly household income of the applicant should not exceed 40,000 rupees. Number two, the applicant should not be the owner of housing units or residential plot of land. And three, the applicant should not have benefited from any government grant for the casting of roof slabs and for purchase of building materials. Madam Speaker, With regard to Part B, the applicants will be called for interview 2 to 3 months prior to the completion of the project. However, allow me to halt at this stage to underline the following. There is a misconception amongst the members of the public, believing that calling them for an interview means that they have been granted the right to a house. No. I'd like to underline that calling them for an interview does not guarantee the obtention of a house. It is only to assess the eligibility of each applicant, and that is the purpose of the interview. In regard to Part C, the 750 housing units at Coromandel will be allocated as follows. 100 units for families living in constituency number 1. 50 units for families living in constituency number 2. 200 units for families living in constituency number 19. 400 units for families living in constituency number 20. Those are my answers, and if the honourable member requires any additional information, I shall be glad to oblige.
Yes?
Oui, Madame la Présidente, peut-on savoir de l'honorable ministre en ce qui concerne les futurs acquéreurs, y en aura-t-il plusieurs catégories, je veux dire en fonction des différents critères de sélection, de remboursement et de revenus, bien sûr?
I think this is a very important question that needs, in fact, an answer. There are two ways of proceeding. I could proceed by tabling the criteria for allocation of NSLD housing units, which I will. I believe it's important for it to be a public document. And I will just briefly say that over and above the fact that I talked about the 40,000 income, the date of application, of course, is of utmost importance. I have found, through my research at the level of the ministry, that it was not obviously the ministry that carried out the whole idea of allocation of houses. It's either the NHDC or the NSLD and committees therein. I am convinced that there has been misuse of power. I'm convinced. I'm convinced that there have been people who have listened to orders coming from some sort of kitchen to decide not which cook is going to go therein, but who is going to be living where and when and in what type of house. This is basically our lives, and the lives of citizens of this country was dictated from beginning to end by someone in charge of this kitchen. So, in order to put some order in the kitchen, I like blowing up the kitchen and starting afresh. But then again, the people did it for us. They blew it up. So now, household type and composition, that also is a criteria. A couple with dependents earns 10 marks. There's a marking system. Honorable Osman Mohamed, now minister, at one point in time, he was at the NHDC. If I'm not mistaken, he was also one of those responsible for setting up of this criteria, as well as Honorable Bashir Korabaks at one point in time. But those are legacies that were left. But unfortunately, some people have found ways and means of going around the excellent work you've done in order to give houses to, and the condition of obtaining houses was how much of a nice person you are holding up the drapeau of certain people. But this is not what we are about. So criteria is very important. And we are not going to be choosing based on political appartenance, on who you are, what you are, and how close you are. It is criteria, and it's going to be rule-based. So I can assure the honourable member of that. Catchment area is obviously important because, as I've said, some people come from certain constituencies. Therefore, where you live, where you come from, is also a very important criteria. Then you have criteria for allocation to hardship cases. I've had the opportunity of speaking with my learned colleague, Minister Ashok Subron, whereby he has intimated his wish to be more helpful and grant more help to the needy, victims of fire, cyclones, floods, natural disasters, domestic violence, single parents with dependents, persons with severe medical conditions and impairments. My honourable friend, Minister Subron, has spoken to me about that. So I can assure the honourable member, the House and those listening to us, Madam Speaker, that we will be rule-based, and there will be no favoritism, and there will be no discrimination. Allow me to add, however, that if there are delays, it is because off-site works have not been completed, because the then government created a company called DICL. It gave the responsibility to DICL to carry out drain works all around the island, around NHDC or NSLD projects. And I can say that they have not been functioning very well. And we've had very urgent meetings chaired by the Senior Chief Executive of our ministry with the ICL and the officers in order to ensure, yes, I know the problematic. But then again, it's not the responsibility of the now minister to have staffed it last year. And when the project started, they should have staffed it then. So it is to the incompetence of the then government. And the minister in charge, I cannot remember his name, the then, Bobby, yes, some name of that nature. I cannot remember whether it was him. But through incompetence, he did not staff it, and the honourable member will remember, if I'm not mistaken, he himself a déjà croisé le fer with those incompetence. Thank you.
Madam, thank you. Yes, he hasn't finished. Then we will have you
souvent tendance à oublier, c'est qu'avec les pluies torrentielles, les inondations récurrentes, l'honorable ministre peut-il nous dire si les constructeurs ont prévu un système de drain afin d'évacuer l'eau, évitant ainsi que les appartements au rez-de-chaussée soient inondés, comme c'est le cas au complexe de vétiver à Petite-Rivière?
I can assure the honourable member that, as an example that I can give, only yesterday I had, yes, it was yesterday, I had the pleasure of going to a site visit in constituency number 1 with Honourable Minister Navarre, who is here, and Honourable Fabrice David, who is also together with me. And we went to visit, yes, is there? So we went to visit in constituency number 1. And there we have been very, very careful to note little issues, but in fact are very important, drain works. And we find that all of them have made provision. But I come back to DICL. DICL is given the task of completing off-site works, precisely in order to ensure that those habitations, those projects are not flooded. And this is very, very important. But unfortunately, there are projects for which the houses are ready, but I will not be able to deliver, at least NSLD will not be able to deliver to beneficiaries, and you will find that there will be degradation of the quality of material because you're closing the houses. We have to wait for the drain works, off-site drain works to be completed, because we do not want such situations to occur where people are flooded in. But those are issues high on the agenda, and we are working closely with the new Minister of National Infrastructure and all my colleagues in Cabinet, and we are also being helped by members of Parliament, backbenchers, who are giving us a lot of information and assistance to ensure that we give a better product to the beneficiaries. And let me hasten to add that they have not even considered the possibility of adding solar panels on the roof in order to provide for hot water. They have not even considered rainwater harvesting when we're talking about the age of climate change and the need to have a sustainable, environmentally sustainable construction. They have thought very fast, but have been incompetent in the end result.
Thank you, Minister. Yes. Allez-y, il me reste 12.
Oui, rapidement. Peut-on savoir, honorable ministre, quelles sont les infrastructures sociales et de loisirs qui ont été prévues pour les...
Non, je ne peux pas vous laisser, parce que ça, c'est nouveau. Une nouvelle question la semaine prochaine, ce sera bien. Monsieur...
I'll share it with you. Okay.
Non, parce que ça, c'est nouveau, hein, quand même. Allez-y.
C'est par rapport au complexe.
Mais on peut parler de tout, si on veut. Hein? Allez-y, monsieur. Après.
Madame la Présidente, j'aimerais demander à Monsieur le ministre que beaucoup de personnes se sont plaints qu'ils sont sur une liste d'attente depuis plus de 20 ans, d'une dizaine, vingtaine d'années, et que lorsqu'ils appellent ou ils rendent visite au bureau de la NHDC, ils se plaignent de dossiers perdus. Can the minister please put up a campaign or a fast-track campaign afin de réactualiser les dossiers des demandeurs en vue du processus d'allocation des logements sociaux?
Even though, Madam, it does not really, but it's within the ambit, if I may help. I do not want to adopt such a fast track that we have, unfortunately, as Honourable Stéphane Yangtil has said, we have what we have had, where people are at Cimetière Saint-Jean with a fast track. So we don't want that. We want to sort out the problem. And the issue is that with the new government and the new direction at the level of both the NHDC and the NSLD, what we are ensuring to do is that there's a proper customer service, that we ensure that those criteria are adhered to, but there is an efficient communication between the end user and the builders, the promoters. So this is what we need to do, because a lot of the times, I totally agree with you, I end up being the one answering at least, well, hundreds of calls a day, what's happening to my home. And just to add it up, I tested the customer service of the NHDC last year as soon as I took office, and I pretended to be someone from QPIP. And I waited for 20 minutes and I still didn't get the answer. So that was in the first week. I can assure you that those issues have been attended to, and I'm very thankful to the officers of the NHDC, NSLD, and the ministry for really helping to improve service, and I'm sure that we will be successful.
Yes.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Monsieur le ministre, en parlant des critères d'éligibilité, plusieurs familles sont dans l'attente depuis des lustres, nous le savons tous. Qu'en est-il de ceux qui ont déjà atteint l'âge de la retraite, voire 60 ans plus? Est-ce qu'ils devront attendre longtemps? Est-ce qu'un jour, ils pourront devenir propriétaires d'une maison de la NHDC? Est-ce qu'il y aura aussi une attention particulière? Je vous attends. Merci.
I thank the honourable member for the question. I have had the opportunity of meeting Mobank, one of the financing institutions, precisely for many other cases that were finding some difficulties, but precisely for old age pensioners who have been on the list for many, many years. And they were saying that they could not consider that they were eligible for a loan when in fact, because of their age. So what we have done is to find solutions together. And one of the solutions would be that one of their relatives, a child, would be guaranteeing the loan and to take on that responsibility. And grosso modo, we are finding solutions. We are finding solutions. And I do agree with the honourable member that many people have waited, not only old age pensioners, you have a lot of single mothers. You have a lot of mothers who are divorced with children, who need to find a home to live in and do not want to continuously be paying rent, and they want to become homeowners. We have more than 40,000 applications. The previous government had said that they were delivering 6,000 houses before the end of their mandate 2024. That was a lie. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Jamal, first member for Port-Louis.
B38.
Madam Speaker, once again, let me thank the honourable member for the question. So, in order to, as a prelude to the answer, pagiometric basically consists of a narrow belt, theoretically 81.21 meters in width, nearly all around the coast of the island of Mauritius and our state-owned. I'm informed that there are approximately 6,405 leases that have been granted by my ministry over pagiometric. Let me hasten to add that this was not granted by me ever since we came into office. In regard to Part A, I'm informed that as at the 31st of December 2024, the outstanding rental in respect of all leases, including all those pagiometric, is approximately 1.8 billion rupees. Yes, that's the figure that is owed for all those leases, more than 1.8 billion rupees. In regards to Part B, I understand that there are more than 11,000 leases, both on pagiometric and non-pagiometric, who are in arrears of annual rental for more than 24 months. And the amount due is approximately 968 million rupees, almost a billion, is owed to government by those lessees. Thank you, Madam.
Madam Speaker, Honourable Minister, is it possible for you to table the list of the debtors and the respective amounts?
Un peu plus fort, s'il vous plaît.
Je demande à l'honorable ministre s'il peut déposer la liste des débiteurs.
I must admit that I have the list in my hand, but I have to take advice from the Attorney General's office to ensure that I'm not in violation of any data protection legislation before I do this, because it holds names, addresses, and what is owed. However, I must say that I am considering at the level of the ministry, because we have to recuperate this money. It cannot be that we don't recoup this money, because I am aware as well, from memory, there is Article 2277 of the Civil Code. Article 2277 of the Civil Code would be this fact that we can only claim 3 years back in terms of rent. And I will have to seek confirmation of that from the Attorney General's office. But we will have to find whether any non-payment of such money to government, causing prejudice to government, I mean, is this not a violation of contract? And if this is a violation of contract, it means what it means. It means that we would therefore be able to consider whether or not we take action for breach of contract. And then we will also see whether we can recuperate. But we will endeavor, I can assure the Honourable Member, and I thank him for his question again, we will endeavor to recuperate all of it. We will go after each one of them and explore all avenues. We will try to ensure that the mandate that has been given to us, we will honor it and not let this go away into oblivion as though it is nothing. This is owed to the people and it must be refunded.
Thank you. Yes.
Madam Speaker, being given that we are talking about state land occupied by leaseholders on pagiometric, and in order to alleviate this situation, would the Honourable Minister consider the possibility of granting opportunity to residential leaseholders, in particular those who have occupied those land for more than 30 years, the possibility of granting the opportunity to have the freehold title at a price which can be determined by the government under his ministry?
For one thing, if my learned friend, if my friend, I refer to him as a member of the bar, if my friend is referring to the pagiometric, there would be issues there, because then the pagiometric, from my knowledge, is inalienable.
Yes,
as such,
exactly.
it would require, I like it when I see the Attorney General nodding and his senior counsel. I love it. Thank you. So we would have to amend the law, and then this is something which would require government to take a policy decision, and this is not within for me to pronounce myself on that. Difficult, however. But already, let me recall that as far back as I recall, at one point in time, the Labour Party, when in government at one point, had made legislative changes in order to allow owners of CHA houses in order to become owners for the modique somme de 2,000 rupees. And this is continuing, and this is a social measure that was brought in by the Labour Party that is continuing, and I'm happy to see that a lot of people are becoming homeowners. Thank you.
But pagiometric is another issue. I think we will stop here. I have a few questions that have been, in fact, withdrawn. B42, B58, B60, B69, B57, B65, B45, B49, B68, B70, B52. Members agree with these? You have withdrawn your questions, and I understand why you do that. So if you agree, we will stop question time here.
Motion. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that all the business in today's order paper be exempted from the provisions of paragraph 2 of Standing Order 10.
The question is, it has to be seconded by the Deputy Prime Minister. The question is that all the business on today's order paper, be exempted from the provisions of paragraph 2 of Standing Order 10. Those in favour say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Means you're staying late.
Statement by Ministers none. Public Bill, first reading.
I move that the Financial Crimes Commission Miscellaneous Provisions Bill number 1 of 2025 be read first time.
Motion needs to be seconded. Yes?
Motion.
Honourable Second Member for Quartier Militaire and Moka. My pleasure.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg to move the motion standing on my name that this Assembly resolves that the Government Programme 2025-2029 presented to this Assembly on Friday, 24th January 2025, copy of which has been circularised amongst honourable members, be and is hereby approved. Madam Speaker, dear honourable members, I'm deeply honoured to address this august Assembly on the occasion of my maiden speech. In the context of the debates on the 2024-2029 Government Programme presented by His Excellency, the President of Mauritius, Mr. Dharam Goku. As a new member of this Assembly, a neophyte, I'm privileged to initiate discussions on a groundbreaking programme that binds us to our destiny, that is, to serve this land and its people with diligence, honour, and integrity. A new parliamentarian, I thank the Prime Minister, Honourable Dr. Navin Ramgoolam, and our Vice Prime Minister, Honourable Mr. Paul Béranger, for having bestowed upon me the duty to serve the nation. Along with my fellow new members of the Assembly, I can affirm that we are privileged and honoured to have been chosen by the people to represent them, to fight for their best interest and lead a nation from darkness to light, with our dream and hopes shaping a guiding beacon. May I express my gratitude to our leaders for having embraced the aspirations and hope of every citizen, for a land where our human rights and dignity are respected and valued, a land where our humanity is protected and our future held dearly. This programme epitomises the leaders of the Alliance of Change commitment to build a government of the people, by the people, for the people. We, elected members of this Assembly, sit at the cusp of history. We have been entrusted with the people's faith to rebuild a nation that was formerly entrapped in the throes of pain and despair. With this programme, we carry the flame of hope the people have conferred upon us. We carry the aspirations of thousands of men, women, youth, and elderly who have dreamt of a land where life shall flourish. Above all, we have been bestowed with the duty of rebuilding a land with a programme that encapsulates the essence of struggles led by workers, ecologists, human rights activists, feminists, and engaged citizens who firmly believe in a fair and just society for each and every citizen. As an eco-socialist with an unflinching faith that a free and equitable world can be constructed for us all, this programme empowers me to continue the people's struggle for social, economic, and ecological justice. The 2024-2029 Government Programme in its entirety imbues us with hope and pride. It anchors in our spirit an unflinching sense of duty towards our people, our nation, and our homeland. It is indeed a bridge to the future, a brighter, more secure and peaceful future. As noted by His Excellency the President, the country had experienced one of the darkest periods of its history prior to the November 2024 elections. In contrast, this program paves the path into a future where this government is strongly responsive to the needs and aspirations of its people. May I express my deep gratitude to His Excellency, the President of Mauritius, who articulated our vision with shared faith, hope, and commitment. This program channels our manifesto, the history-making signed agreement among 4 political parties to lead a nation from darkness to light, from despair to hope, from subjugation to freedom. It is the bridge to a safe and empowered future for the people. May I congratulate you, Madam Speaker, on your nomination. Madam, you have ensured so far that the Assembly is an illustrious democratic space where the freedom of expression is upheld in utmost respect. Dear Madam, you symbolize the aspiration of us, Mauritian feminists, and you are a role model to us all. Though we may appear little, we are fierce, as our dear Shakespeare said about strong women. Madam Speaker, I'm deeply grateful to this government, to our inspired leaders who have dared to augur system change that shall protect the democratic rights of future generations. This government is embarking on key constitutional reforms to protect the nation from any further violation of our democratic rights. The dark days we formerly experienced are deeply scarred in our memory, and we are still tending to our wounds. The balm, Madam Speaker, has been provided with the future Constitutional Review Commission. It is to be noted that this commission will guarantee that local government elections will be held regularly according to law. This commission further has been tasked with incorporating public interest litigation and class action into the Constitution. In a healthy democracy, people should be empowered to reflect, question, mobilize, and take action. History has been made repeatedly when people mobilized to overthrow injustice across the world. With the forthcoming public interest litigation and class action motion, we're proud of a government that places faith in the people's independence, leadership, intelligence, and decision-making capacities. Mauritius has shown as a firm model of democratic freedom when the people rose to oust its former regime under which it had been suffocating. Constitutional reforms hailing democratic rights are the hallmark of a government ready to serve their people. The right to recall motion recognizes similarly the primacy of public interest. It augurs good governance, accountability, and guarantees future generations that their needs will be prioritized. Likewise, through the concerted address of digital rights, this government program emphasizes its commitment to protecting the people from the former invasive surveillance that threatened every fabric of our lives and robbed us of our serenity. A healthy democracy is where each citizen breathes freedom, where each citizen can reflect, think critically, and contribute to the country's well-being. The November 2024 elections precisely demonstrated the people's intelligence, their firm stance against oppression, and their refusal to be swayed by money and false promises. The Freedom of Information Act further seals the will of this government to construct a model democratic state, where every media organ will be free, where each citizen's voice can be heard and heeded. A healthy, dynamic, and functional participatory democracy will be the historical legacy of this government. a government that seeks to empower people rather than divide and rule, a government that aims to recognize our brotherhood and sisterhood, a nation with a shared cultural history rather than draw boundaries based on obsolete and absurd ethnic divisions, is a government that is decolonizing our minds. I am immensely proud to be a member of this government that will undertake constitutional reforms whereby any Mauritian may stand for elections as a Mauritian. This government is thus discarding the divisive legacy of colonization. As a former academic who specialized in post-colonial cultural histories of embodied resistance and resilience, I can but beam with pride and respect for our leaders who are making history and ending decades of injustice. This government is indeed entrenching the decolonization of minds, soul, and the entire island. It is setting an example for the post-colonial world to condemn and reject the toxic colonial legacy of divide and rule. This government is setting an example for the entire world to emulate by forging a future where communalism may be dismantled and our shared humanity valued. Madam Speaker, system change is what we need to build a better, fair and just society. This is embedded in our government programme, where the Just Transition Commission will be set up to anchor a firm ecological consciousness in every socio-economic endeavour. In a context of economic crisis and chaos, our leaders are to be lauded for having understood the ecological imperative on which human survival depends. The programme is an affirmation of this government's commitment to protecting life, nature, and the land. By inserting the rights of nature in the Constitution, this programme will align this government along with the visionary and exemplary nations such as New Zealand, India, and Canada, who recognise nature as a right-bearing entity. For a fervent ecologist, inserting the rights of nature in the Constitution is the prime signal of a government that is cognizant of the life-threatening implications of the climate crisis. I warmly thank all ecologists who have led multiple struggles to which our government leaders have now responded with utmost sensitivity. Nature is life. Nature is our mother. Nature is our home. Nature does not belong to us. We belong to it. This government has solemnly pledged to protect nature. It has solemnly pledged to protect life. It has solemnly pledged to protect us all and our land. Thank you to our leaders from the depth of our ecological souls that have been seared by the past destruction of our ecosystems. The protection of our ESAs, that is our environmentally sensitive areas, similarly illustrate how this government has embraced eco-consciousness. This is hope. This is the bridge to the future we embrace wholeheartedly. Madam Speaker, economic crises are engineered to shape precarity, psychosis, and a sense of fragility that make us vulnerable to economic predators. It is within this context that we need to appreciate this programme's emphasis on socio-economic rights. This programme epitomises our leaders' refusal to sacrifice the people's rights, well-being and future, no matter how deep we are mired in troubled economic waters. Our leaders will not sacrifice our people on the altar of economic imperatives. This is true humanism. This is true leadership. This is true ethos-driven decision-making. Thank you. I acclaim this government's insistence on protecting workers, women in particular, with regards to the regulation of working hours within with the 40-hour work week, the provision of maternity leave for up to 1 year, and flexi time for women, as well as work-from-home schemes. As a feminist, I have strongly deplored the manner in which capitalism exploits women, who bear the burden of social reproduction and care work, both of which are invaluable to the economy. The economic value of work carried out mostly by women in the home is silenced, erased, taken for granted because capitalism instrumentalizes patriarchy. Measures announced in the government program with regards to workers' rights place an onus on work-life balance and seek to ease the mental charge of women. I'm grateful to women who withstand the demands of capitalism. I'm grateful to feminists who fight for women's care work to be valued. I'm grateful to our decision makers who have finally acknowledged that women's work matters, women's bodies matter, and that patriarchy needs to be dismantled for women to thrive. Similarly, I applaud the visionary step to be taken to amend the artist's status in the law. The artist will no more be condemned to survive in an exploitative, denigrating and destructive system. This program seeks not only to value the artist, but to confer upon the artist a recognized employee status for him or her to rise above precarity. As such, the program recognizes how the empowered and secure artist will be key to developing the cultural industry as a new pillar of the economy. Culture is our lifeblood. Culture is our identity. Culture incorporates our dynamic and creative modes of engaging with our daily reality, our history, and our dreams for the future. A thriving cultural industry is the heartthrob of a healthy society. This program rightly emphasizes the much-needed expansion this industry requires to celebrate our shared culture and heritage. Madam Speaker, the government program recognizes the primacy of socio-economic and cultural rights as defined by the treaty, the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights that Mauritius signed on 12 December 1973. Yes, 52 years later, we now have a government, we now have leaders who will honor this treaty by incorporating our social and economic rights in our constitution. This is system change. Indeed, what we are privileged to be part of is a leadership based on care and empathy, a leadership that will forge a stronger nation, a nation that looks after the most vulnerable members of our society, a nation that values dignity, respect, and solidarity. The very values that our Prime Minister has reminded us are our empowering legacy from our history of enslavement. This program expressively stipulates that in Mauritius, the elderly, people with disabilities, widows and orphans will be taken care of. This is a solemn pledge that can but empower us in our daily struggles to help thousands who suffer from systemic discrimination. Madam Speaker, authentic leadership is about care and empathy. It is based on meaningful connections with humanity as a whole. This leadership of care is exemplified by careful attention paid in the program to a range of reforms aimed at improving the lives of each and every citizen. Indeed, pension reforms and the e-social security system are fundamental. There are concrete steps being envisaged to upgrade a system that currently condemns thousands to profound misery. As newly elected members of the Assembly, we are being called upon daily to respond to multiple cases of genuine and heartbreaking human distress. The previous system has been nothing but criminal. It has been cruel, deadly, and monstrous. It has inflicted needless pain and suffering on the weakest of our citizens. This program precisely seeks to give us the tools to support our most vulnerable fellow men and women. We welcome with our whole hearts the much required change in the social security system. We will not only care, but we will act upon our care. Madam Speaker, the Mauritian family has been under dire stress over the past years. Rising cost of living, poor employment prospects, the burden of long working hours, and children having no hope of a future in the homeland, as well as significant social ills, have made our families frail. This program recognizes that the family unit has to be strengthened in order for our society to stand firm and strong again. Families are the foundation of social reproduction. They protect life and the future of humanity. Protecting each family is a government's ultimate responsibility. With regards to education, we genuinely applaud the program's emphasis on inclusion. Our education system has long been discriminatory and elitist, with systemic exclusion of the most vulnerable, that is, students with SEN requirements. In the recent past, we have further witnessed the deliberate dismantling of the education system. Exclusion in a competitive system that is overly exam-oriented has sapped our children of the potential to develop their full intellectual abilities. It has been orchestrated intellectual genocide of the innocent and the underprivileged. Inclusion, in contrast, is progress. Inclusion is ethics. Inclusion is the valuing of each child's right. Inclusive education is the way forward. This government has already demonstrated its dedication to implementing inclusive education by eradicating the extended stream program. It was the prime example of how our children were being failed by a system that could not even develop their numeracy and literacy skills. This government program, in addition, seeks to value teachers and their role. This fundamental aim can but redress the profound flaws of a system where teachers are not empowered to support the intellectual and holistic development of our children. Our children and their future can no more be sacrificed on altars of narrow policies and dysfunctional educational practices. Dedicated teachers change lives, forge aspirations, and shape a country's future. One of the main reasons I stand here today is because my teachers believed in me. With a growth mindset, teachers can make a difference for each Mauritian child. This is precisely what this government seeks to achieve. Madam Speaker, we can similarly applaud the close attention paid to food security in the government program. Food security is one of the primary challenges we face due to the climate crisis. Anxiety about food access during the initial phase of the COVID-19 pandemic still lingers in our minds. Disruptions of supply chain and rising food prices resulted in near-mass psychosis. It is to the honor of this government to tackle food insecurity and ensure that such dramatic lack of access to food never occurs again. Food is a basic human right. It is a fundamental physiological need as defined by Maslow, without which no other need can be satisfied. A government that feeds its people, that provides equal access to food, is a responsible and caring government. It is duty-bound and driven by conscientious awareness about the climate crisis. It is good governance, for it bears foresight into an insecure future in their Anthropocene era. Madam Speaker, with regards to restoring law and order, we can but breathe with relief that the Prime Minister and this government are spearheading immediate and concrete action to battle the scourge of drugs. Madam Speaker, drugs have and are taking their toll on our society. Not a single day goes by without us witnessing the tragedies drugs entail in every corner of our society. The case of baby Catalia, murdered by a neighbor under the influence of synthetic drugs, exemplifies the human loss we endure due to the pervasiveness of drugs across the island. Drugs are killing our children, murdering our youth, and incapacitating whole families. They are the bane of this land and its people. The government program demonstrates precisely the genuine leadership required to battle the scourge, no matter how hard it is. amidst various urgent significant measures stated in the programme, the distinction to be made between traffickers and consumers denotes the willingness to take care of victims, to look after the people. This programme seeks to heal, save, and protect. We are thankful and we hold dearly the hope that no more children shall suffer the fate of baby Catalia. May her soul rest in peace. May innocent children suffer no more. Madam Speaker, I thank this government for paying due attention to improving access to justice, to enhancing judiciary processes and forging public trust in the police. The police and criminal justice, as well as the criminal evidence bills, will no doubt be elaborated with due expertise to safeguard the public and ensure institutional efficacy. We may now breathe with relief. To have faith in the judiciary and the police is what the people have been hoping for with bated breath. The former failures of both institutions had almost led us to the state of the Homo Caesar, as defined by Giorgio Agamben, the state of exception, where our humanity, our safety, and our right to life were no more upheld by those in power. This government is therefore ready to take on the most dire of challenges: make the island safe again. I'm grateful to our decision makers who have paid due consideration to the appropriate, safe, and conducive conditions police officers need to work in. I strongly deplore the current dilapidated state of many police stations, particularly in my constituency number 8. I think particularly of women police officers who work odd hours in conditions where they cannot even access clean and operational bathrooms. This program reflects humane and sensitive attention paid to the working conditions of police officers. They are frontline employees and have to undertake extensive emotional labor. My constituency has witnessed the worst of crimes. It is our duty to look after those who will help us seek justice. It is our duty to ensure they can perform to the best of their abilities in safe and healthy conditions. Madam Speaker, a caring government is a government that dares take on board the criminal dysfunctionalities of systems it has inherited. One such dysfunctionality of extensive proportions lies in the healthcare sector, where we have witnessed the tragic loss of lives of patients on dialysis during the COVID-19 pandemic. With a firm intention of supporting substance abuse rehabilitation, improving current mental health care, and ensuring more adequate services to the elderly, this program entrenches the government's dedication to providing quality public health care. Free quality public health care is the hallmark of a functional welfare state that forges equity across our society. As Margaret Mead stated, civilization is only achieved when the most vulnerable and sickly is carefully looked after. Indeed, this government program epitomizes the duty of care towards us all. I'm proud to be part of a government that further places emphasis on youth empowerment, developing a dynamic sports sector, and ensuring just access to our housing. This program bears in mind the precise social and economic dimensions that can empower each Mauritian, no matter his or her walk of life. To conclude, Madam Speaker, the people rose, broke their chains, and handed us the beacon of light to a future of hope for each Mauritian. This program etches a vision of ethical governance based on care for life, nature, and the land. An equal and just society is what this program aspires to. We understand the economic challenges, but we can hail the vision of our leaders, the drive to protect the people, redress the multiple wrongs Mauritians have been subject to for years, and rebuild a nation where we can all live securely, breathe freely, and be at peace is inspiring. A vision empowers. It draws from every struggle for human dignity, respect, and the right to life. It shapes the purpose of life. It boldens our spirit to climb over mountains and cross rivers. A true revolutionary is guided by love for humanity, hope, and a vision for its upliftment. I therefore call upon this august assembly to approve this motion. C'est le plat de résistance et de résilience de notre gouvernement. Merci.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for your first speech. Thank you and welcome. I need someone to second the motion. Yes, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to congratulate the Honourable Tanu for her maiden speech. It was indeed a bouffée d'air fraîche. I mean, I'm trying to sit down here to try to remember not long ago what it was like. I mean, very often when I'm outside of this assembly, I'm told that they enjoyed, not because they enjoyed that the other speaker threw me out very often. They didn't enjoy that very much. We were in competition, the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and others. You were also there on the agenda. A lot of us were. But what they do say is they are wondering, how will it be different? And Madam Speaker, allow me to say that having listened to the Honourable Member address this Assembly, not only did she do it with a lot of the quality in the content, but she did it very calm, by respecting this august Assembly. And all those of us here can say that when we hear her, we understand why she has been up to the challenge of going to the constituency of the former Prime Minister and taking him on and taught him a lesson. As far as I'm concerned, I find myself a bit in between those generations. And when I hear the Honourable Member address the Assembly, when I listen to the content very attentively, I say that there is indeed a bright future for the future of this country when you have generations that are going to be taken care of by members of Parliament of your caliber. Congratulations, Madam. I cannot refuse to forget to mention 2015, when I remember I found myself sitting in the second row there, and the members of the MMM were also on the opposition. We were only 4 of the Labour Party, only 4. And I happened to be the chef de file of the Labour Party, and quite quickly I was joined by my good friend and elder brother, Honourable Boulel, and he allowed me to continue as a chef de file. We happen to have lived a lot of events in this house, a lot of events. And all those who have joined today, I feel sorry for you, you would not have lived it. It was a learning experience, a learning curve. And if history, one day down the road, the future generations will at least know that what must you not do, then watch the videos of what the former speaker did. Watch what the former prime minister did. Watch what the ministers of the last regime did. And when we told them time and time again that the people out there would not forgive, they laughed at us. And when we questioned them and it embarrassed them, the speaker stood up and threw us out. Can you imagine, Madam Speaker, when I look at the government program and I look at the last phrase, let Mauritius be Mauritius again, those words mean a lot. Full of meaning. Let Mauritius be Mauritius again. Mauritius, I always talked about that in my public speeches. I talked about our national anthem. I even had the courage, was it a good idea or not, but I sang the national anthem. I sang the national anthem. But then again, I thought it was quite good. But then again, when I heard myself in a video from the back, I do not believe I'll change career and adopt singing. When I sang those words, I said it to my son who was with me there. And I said to him, I will sing it. When I left home, I said it to him. And he looked at me before I was going to pronounce my speech in Portuguese. And he said, Dad, sing it. And for a minute, I almost said, no, I wouldn't. But the future generation not only understand the importance of those words, but they live it, they breathe it. It's in their DNA. And this is what Mauritius is all about. Let Mauritius be Mauritius again. This is what it's all about. And today, people can go to the social media and talk against us. It is their right. It is their right to criticize, and we all know that they have views that we may not agree with, but it is their right. And look at the difference. None of those who have spoken out against us have found themselves behind bars. None of them have been arrested. You haven't had police officers lurking around your yard early in the morning, breaking cameras, blocking the numbers, not wanting to be identified. You don't have them pulling you out of your home without any reasonable suspicion, with no grounds for arrest. I remember what they did to the former Prime Minister. I remember what they did to me. I remember going to Central CID with my then counsel, Honorable Attorney General here, Gavin Glover. I remember the tears of my late father. I remember how they made him cry. I'll not forget. And when I stood in this assembly and I said to some ministers the next day after my arrest, I will not forget, but I do not come after you with revenge. I will not. I will not forget. And I said to them, we will put nails in your coffin, political coffin. But they chose otherwise. We talk about political coffin, whereas we've seen what they do to their political agents. We cannot forget. Let Mauritius be Mauritius again, where people are not assassinated for political reasons. There is no cover-up by police officers. Let Mauritius and every single department of government live again, breathe again, where meritocracy starts existing and has meaning, not just words. Not just words. And today, when the Honorable Prime Minister stood up and answered the question from the leader of the opposition, I have to make reference to it. I was flabbergasted. Can you imagine what it means? What does our constitution mean? When you have a Prime Minister, he used to sit opposite us there. When you have a Prime Minister, say, he stands up and he does not know, or maybe pretends to ignore, what is a sovereign democratic state. What does democracy mean? What does sovereignty mean? What does all this mean? It's not only words, you have to understand its meaning. You have to live it. Can you imagine what it means when you, somewhere, someplace, conspire with others to spend more than $100 million in order to have a mass surveillance mechanism? MSM, mass surveillance mechanism.
Oh my God.
Do you know what that means? I listened. I heard myself talking to Honorable Asiya Baden. Oh yes, it was you. Don't deny it. Honorable Juman was talking on there. Honorable Omia, who's not here, was on there. I heard my voice. It's my voice. It was me. I confirm. Now, can you imagine? The Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister, knows what I exactly thought of him. I thought it was a secret. I thought it was a secret, and all along, he knew exactly what I thought of him. That's bad. But I'm happy. Can you imagine that he spends hundreds of millions of dollars. Not long ago in 2023, there was an inquiry being carried out in Germany. In Germany, where there was the whole mechanism that was put into place for mass surveillance. And the public prosecutor there recommended charges, prosecutions for the offense of for high treason. High treason. High treason means that you cannot embark upon any process to break down democracy. The very essence of this country. If you're trying to break it down democracy, therefore destroying democracy, and in other words, controlling the country by occult means, such as mass surveillance system, in certain jurisdictions, it is indeed high treason. I say it here, that any person, Mauritian or otherwise, who embarks upon any process to carry out mass surveillance of the citizens of this country is indeed guilty of high treason and should be prosecuted for high treason. But it's not for me to decide. That's my view. The former government, the Prime Minister decides, the police acts. And who cared about what the DPP thought? But no, I'm only giving you my humble opinion. There are many lawyers and colleagues here who would be able to express their views on that. Is it not high treason to try to destroy democracy? What is contained in the Constitution, the right to privacy, isn't this part of democracy? When one person who is at the executive decides to spend taxpayers' money to eavesdrop, and not only eavesdrop, worse, he stores the information, for God's sake. Didn't we talk here about ways and means that he and others talked to the Commissioner of Police in order to get people to say what they wanted the witnesses to say in order to get people arrested? Let Mauritius be Mauritius again. And when I hear the Honorable Duval questioning about those Mr. Moustache, does it mean that he has come to realize that Mauritius indeed should be Mauritius again because he is sitting next to partners that he would love not to be sitting next to? They tried to get him arrested, for God's sake. They tried to get him arrested. Can you imagine one Dr. Jumai calling and saying, well, you know, let's tell him to say this, let's get him to say that. No, I've got him. Then calling another lawyer who was a candidate in constituency number 2 and telling him, oh, well, you know what? I've said it, you know. I've told him to say so. Don't worry, this is going to be said. That will be going to be said. And today, those people think that this is their version of democracy. But the people of this country have decided. You know, when Honorable Bhagwan said to them, you know, met to cask, integral on top of it. You see, he was being very, you know, he cared for them. Made sure no part could be hurt. You see, he's a very caring gentleman. Integral. And one thing I learned from him very often, when I was minister, he used to say that to me. He said, hey, by the way, you bought your duty-free already? I said, why? He said, you won't be in power soon. And this is what I learned from him, and I went to say to the other friends. And you know what? They never believed us. They never believed us. And I said to them, you would really fall and fall hard, because what you're doing is not a crime against us. Forget about me. Forget about the leader of the Labour Party. Forget about the leader of the MMM and us. We are just but mere mortals. But you cannot do what you're doing to the people of this land. The people will rise and they will punish you. And it was done. Now this is behind us. Unfortunately, in order to chart the course, we need to know what happened behind us. That's why I have to talk about it. You know, let me say that. I was thinking very carefully about the preparation of what I would say today. And I decided to go extempo. And because we've lived interesting days, sad days. And if I had to live it again, I would say yes, I'd live it again, because it defines who you become. You see? I remember, and I will stop talking about the past in a minute, but when I remember the leader of the Labour Party being dragged from his home, Louis Desforges, they wanted to break him. But it defines what he has become. And I said to him just now at lunch, your victory, this victory that you led this alliance as Prime Minister will be remembered for the future generations and the generations to come. Because in spite of all they've done, he has taught us that if you believe in one thing, stick to it. Be consistent. Stand up to those who try to crush you. Stand up to them. And he did it lawfully. That's the difference. He did not send police officers to the home of the former Prime Minister. He did not call the police and say, get the governor of the Bank of Mauritius, former bank, arrested, shut him in. He didn't do all that. So much so that people were asking questions, how come so-and-so is traveling? How come the former Prime Minister is going to shop in Champs-Élysées and on Oxford Street and what have you, and carrying Chanel bags and whatnot? I mean, this is his life. Let him live it. But he was so concerned and obsessed with the former Prime Minister that he ensured that everyone in the country could be eavesdropped, and he was ensuring that he could destroy this man. But thank God and thank the Almighty, he hasn't succeeded. I look at Honorable Osman Mohamed, and there's nothing wrong, so don't You see, very often he speaks of Singapore. Allow me to say why I say that. You speak of Singapore. And when you speak of Singapore, he always talks about what he's learned from Singapore. I know Honorable Utimozo has worked there. And therefore, is it a coincidence that both of them are candidates in number 2? No, but it is, in fact, that I learn a lot from both of them, and both of them speak. Maybe sometimes they have the impression I don't listen, but I hear whatever they say. And I take a lot of lessons from what they say. And what they say is Singapore. They talk about the greatness of the technology in Singapore, the society in Singapore. So this is how we were talking about reform. A lot of people have asked me, what is the digital twin? A lot of people ask. In the government program, we refer to the digital twin of Mauritius. As we stand today, I stand before you as Minister of Housing and Land. I go to my ministry, and I went in December, and I asked the senior chief executive of that ministry, for whom I have a lot of respect, and the officers there. And I asked them, show me a map of Mauritius. I want to see a map, a virtual digital map, whereby I would be able to identify, show me which land belongs to the state, which land belongs to the private sector, which land is environmentally sensitive, which land is flood prone, which land, give me all the data. Unfortunately, there are a lot of platforms, but none of the platforms can give me what I am looking for. And it hit me that I met certain very important individuals. I say important because I admire their intelligence, and they are important people to me. Those who have a lot of intelligence. Don't talk for the sake of talking, but talk sense. Those people at the Economic Development Board said to me, there is something called the digital twin that was implemented in Singapore. And this is what this government will embark upon implementing. It is, in fact, digitalizing Mauritius, the whole of Mauritius, and to use it as an urban planning tool. Imagine the future. Let me take you to this future through my words. Imagine a future where you do not have to send land surveyors out there to measure the topography. You don't have to, you have a platform at the Ministry of Land, Housing and Land. In that electronic tool, that digital tool, you will have a digitalized Mauritius. The Ministry of Environment will be able to share data on that platform as to what are environmentally sensitive areas. We will have information from the Ministry of Transport. We will have information from the Ministry of International Infrastructure, the Ministry of Tourism, all relevant ministries, the Prime Minister's office. We will have information about the Safe City cameras. So much so that if someone wants to apply for a BLUP, he will simply have to apply for one electronically. He will have access to the digital Mauritius as well. We will simply plug in the format of the building he wants to put up, and you will see the virtual building immediately pop up. And we will know, using artificial intelligence on that platform, with all the data including on that platform, disaster management will be able to be catered for. We will know what traffic will be like in the 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 years to come. We will know what electricity will be required, what water will be required. We will know everything we need to know in order to plan a smart Mauritius. This is going to be a legacy project. And I've embarked upon this, and I know I can count upon the help and collaboration of all my colleague ministers and backbenchers and junior ministers for us to be able to move forward and stop working in silos. And that has been the big problem. A lot of our administration in Mauritius, where whatever information the Minister of Agro-Industry will have, the Ministry of Housing will not necessarily have it. Whatever information I have at housing, that you don't have it necessarily at environment. And we go on like that. We have to be able to have all information without any silos, collaborative in one platform to plan a smarter Mauritius. And this is what we are embarking upon. Singapore has done it. So much so, Singapore today, it can know everyone, access to information. This is what this government is all about. Not only will government be able to hold the information close to its chest, but it will be able to have it, maybe a subscription form, maybe in a different format, but we will be able to sell this data or share this data to members of the public in order to build a new Mauritius. Gone are the days where you do not have proper planning. And since I'm talking about planning, Madam Speaker, sir, Madam Speaker, let me say that. Madam Speaker, sir. Yeah. And you see, there are two planning legislations regulating land development in Mauritius. The Town and Country Planning Act of 1954 and the partly proclaimed Planning and Development Act of 2004. These laws, Madam Speaker, work together to guide land use planning, but the Town and Country Planning Act of 54 has become outdated and doesn't fully address modern land use challenges. Efforts to update that piece of legislation, including the passing of new acts in 1990 and 1995, have been unsuccessful. While the Planning and Development Act of 2004 was intended to replace the Town and Country Planning Act, it could not be fully implemented due to changes in other laws, such as the Business Facilitation and Local Government Acts. Additionally, the Town and Country Planning Act of 54 appellate function was transferred to the Environment and Land Use Appeal Tribunal of 2012. A real mess. So finally, we need to put some order in all this, and I will be working very closely with my learned colleague, the Honourable Attorney General, and his office in order to achieve this. There is a need to align legal framework for the preparation and approval of all planning instruments. The current framework for the outline planning scheme has often been challenged in court, with one of the most recent cases being Bossonge Development versus UBP, decided at the Privy Council in 2018. Now, this situation has impacted environmentally sensitive areas, for example, Pomponnet and La Cambuse. Loopholes and inconsistencies enable promoters to bypass certain parameters. There is another issue I'd like to address, Madam Speaker, and it is this as follows. And this is a challenge that we will have to decide and deal with at the level of government. Back in 2017, everyone will remember and try to recall, let's go through a little exercise. Who was Minister of Finance? 2017? Anyone recall? Who? Yes. Him. Don't call him by his name, not the name. Yes. So when he was Minister of Finance in 2017, 17, not 17. The big question we have right now is access to land. Not only we've heard this morning with questions about access to social housing, but think about all the pas géométriques and state land around Mauritius that a lot of promoters are after. That's fact. So as a country, we will have to come, we are at the junction right now. We will have to decide, where do we stand? Yes, there is a need to have foreign direct investment come into Mauritius, and there are various ways and means for it to come in. One of them is through sale of property to foreigners. One of them. And in 2017, the Ministry of Finance wrote a letter to the Managing Director of the Board of Investment, whereby it referred to the apprehensions of the Economic Development Board. The Economic Development Board was against the scheme put up by the then government to sell state land, and they devised ways and means to facilitate the selling of state land to foreigners. For example, you have promoters who come in, they convert their lease campement into, and then they have the right to sell to foreigners as though it is behind the whole idea of a copropriété. And when one listens to people of this country speaking, one of the issues they are preoccupied about is as follows. Yes, it brings in revenue. I've had some facts and I will share it with the House. It brings in revenue. But at what price? You see, let's look at it this way. When I look at the facts here, between 2017 and January 2025, the EDB was in receipt of 1,230 applications for acquisition of ground plus 2 residential apartments by non-citizens. The gross value of these applications, 19.6 billion. That's records of the EDB. Out of these applications over that period, 144 were in relation to apartment, part of a residential development situated over state land, pas géométrique, with coastal frontage. The value of these applications grossly amount to 4.1 billion. The status of these 144 applications. 75 applications approved, having a gross value of 1.79 billion. Out of the 75 authorized transactions, 61 were concluded for an amount of 1.256 million as per records of the EDB. So the issue is, yes, what is the rental per arpent? Between 390,000 and 1 million. Yes, you get money in terms of registration or land transfer. But at the end of the day, when you have apartments selling at 1.5 million euros, 2 million euros, bought by foreigners, that does create a disbalance with regards to the price of property and accessibility to Mauritians. So finally, I was myself walking, and that's strange enough. I never thought I'd become Minister of Housing and Land. Thank you, Prime Minister. I walked in the North Coast. I wanted to rent out a property because I'd share it. We're all family. My sister-in-law is coming. I said I wanted to have her spend a nice time at the beach, to find a nice property on the beach, and I stood before a building on the pas géométrique, and I found an excellent property. When I was there having dinner one night with her, and I managed to speak to the watchman. I often do that. You learn a lot of things, and the Prime Minister taught me that. Speak to the person on the ground, you'll learn more. And I learned a lot. I learned that the whole building was owned by foreigners on pas géométrique. And the North Coast, all of it is owned by foreigners. So the job of my ministry, therefore, with the help of my colleague, will be to decide a balancing exercise. Are we, in the name of money, ready to sell the whole property, the whole country, to foreigners? And then we all end up being what? We'll have to rent out to be able to enjoy frontage. That is the problem. So let me conclude, Madam, by saying that I am indeed in a very important position, I admit. Once upon a time, this position was occupied by my late grandfather, and I must say that la bar is very high indeed, because not only did he, at one point in time, carry out and implement measures that are still today helping the country, but the expectation of the Prime Minister for each of us as ministers and members of Parliament and junior ministers and backbenchers is indeed very high, because the people out there expect us to provide solutions to the wrongs of the past. So yes, NHDC and SLD will be reviewed and reformed. Social justice for social housing. My friends will have the opportunity of putting questions on those matters, which I'll gladly answer, and I will enlighten the House on all development as we go along. However, why I chose to speak about this issue about foreigners, we have nothing against foreigners, clearly. But somewhere, someplace, we have to brainstorm, because we do not want Mauritians to end up being locataires in their own country. That is not the aim of this government, I'm certain. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Minister, for raising some very important issues for the benefit of the people. I wanted to say that, in fact, before you spoke, we were to have Honourable Duval speak, but I want to make it quite clear to everybody that he decided not to speak for whatever personal reasons. It's not that I asked him not to speak. He was to speak, in fact, before you. I thank you, and I think we can break for tea. I was going to say 30 minutes. 30 minutes, I think we need a bit of rest. And then we'll have fresh ideas. So you'll be back here in about 30 minutes. Laissez-moi sortir.